Well, Frank, delighted you can join us here. It looks like a sunny day out of the window there in the corner of the screen down at Cobham at the training ground. After one full season, albeit one that was interrupted, obviously, for a few months, as Chelsea manager, what do you feel you learnt during that period of time?
Well, a lot of things, Arlo, a lot of things. I think coming into a job like Chelsea, from being a player here, you think you know many things at the club, but when you become a manager, it becomes completely different. So I came here with an open mind and thought how different it might feel. And I suppose over the year, in some quite testing times in terms of coming in with the transfer ban and the unknowns of the younger players coming back from loan and the expectations looking slightly different to a typical Chelsea year. I feel stronger. I feel very happy. I feel like those challenges of last year are things that we accomplished a lot. We realised where we can improve. And we all know we want to improve, so we come into a new season obviously with a different expectations, probably because of the players we've brought in, and I feel very comfortable in the fact that I know in the direction I want us to go.
I want to talk about those new players because it's very exciting, young talent being brought into Chelsea. But if you look back at last season, look at the positives and negatives, what were you the most happy about?
Well, I was happy that we achieved the aim of coming in fourth place and retaining Champions League football, because it's a huge deal for the club. And I was happy that when I mentioned the unknowns, we talk about the younger players who, a lot of them had been on loan before in a championship or made their debuts last year, and I thought they showed great quality in the squad. They added to the group, as did some of the experienced players within the group, but I think it was a really nice story for us. So I'm pleased that we achieved a collective of coming in the top four, and individually I think with the squad we saw people rise to challenges and show that they can play for Chelsea. So I think from now we need to think, how can we move forward from that? And as a Chelsea manager, as a Chelsea person, having played here in times when we competed for Premier Leagues and competed for pretty much everything we were in for, we want to move back towards that. And in the signings we've made, hopefully that will really help. But now the issue for us is the hard work that we put in here to try and get those results.
So what were you less happy about, Frank?
Well, when you look back at the season, you still see a big gap, and and that's something we have to be honest about. The 30 points plus to Liverpool, who were incredible last season, and then when you look slightly deeper, you see that we conceded far too many goals than what we would want to. So if we think and turn that into a positive, if we don't concede, if we can cut out the goals that we maybe conceded at set pieces or in moments when we were controlling games and we switched off for a moment and we allowed teams back into the games, where can that get us? I think that's the first building block for us this year. We know we conceded too much considering the position we came, and that's something that we're addressing daily in how we train and hopefully with the personnel that we're bringing in.
Let's get stuck into these new players then, because it's very exciting. Over $250 million spent in the transfer market, which of course evens out, as you said, because the previous two windows you didn't spend anything. One because there was a transfer ban, and then one through choice, I guess, because the deals weren't available to you. What will these players bring to you? You've mentioned they're tightening up in defence. So let's start with Thiago Silva.
Yeah, I think Thiago Silva, he's the one player we brought in that's at that end of his career, and but I had no worries about bringing him in, because when I watched him in the Champions League run to the final, he looked fit and lean and every bit the player that I know Thiago Silva to be. So he also then will bring us the experience of playing in winning teams and what it takes to win. And I hope that he can lead from the back in terms of how he holds himself, can communicate with others around him, because we have some younger players in and around him. And hopefully that will help address some of those defensive problems that I mentioned.
And you have in your mind, I don't expect you to reveal it here, Frank, but you have in your mind, albeit there's going to be a lot of games, so therefore a lot of rotation perhaps, but you have who you would start with him or who your two centre-backs will be for the opening match.
Yeah, I do have that in my mind at the moment, but as we saw last year, it changed a lot, and some of that you don't always want. You want a consistency in who you pick, but you also have to have competition at the same time. So the challenge to the players now at the back is, can you show with your training and with and the way you play that you deserve to be there and give a consistent performance that means I don't change it. And then the challenge goes to the players that want to get into the team, and that's how you generate an uplift in hopefully levels amongst the squad now when you're bringing in players that hopefully bring the general level up, as opposed to anyone that may take it as a negative and think, well, that's me done. No, everyone has to rise and try and fight for their place in the team.
Arguably the two most exciting signings, if you go by the reaction of Chelsea fans on Twitter that I've been following reasonably closely. The two young German attackers, Havertz and Werner. Describe how they'll dovetail, what they bring to the team, and what sort of characters they are, and your early experience with them.
Yeah, well, they're two players I'm delighted to bring in, because they were players that I have had a lot of admiration for from the outside. I watched them, and the one thing I felt individually as a manager last year was that I couldn't bring in players that could affect the style or the way I want us to play last year. The ban didn't allow me to do that, and now they were two players that I set out that I wanted to bring to the club, and thankfully the way we're working here with the owner and with Marina, with Peter Cech, we've been very joined up in how we wanted to bring these exciting players to the club, and I think it will give us a lot of speed and flexibility in high areas and a lot of quality. I felt last year that sometimes we would control games that we couldn't unlock the door, we couldn't find the last pass or the clinical finish that maybe would have turned games in our favour when we were controlling them and creating a lot. And I think in those two we have players that have a lot of speed, a lot of energy, a lot of flair. And I want to give them time because they are young and they're coming to a different league. But I'm very excited to have them both here. And you mentioned personality, and it's a big deal for me when we bring players in, that they come in with the right attitude and desire to play for this Chelsea club and be a good teammate. And I have to say, with those two and all the signings that we've brought in this summer, when I speak to them, I get a really good feeling from them that they're coming in very hungry for success, and that's all you can ask for as a manager.
Fantastic. When we talk about young talent, and particularly in relation to the US audience, of course, Christian Pulisic last season started, had a few struggles, got injured, came back again, very good, got injured again, and then Project Restart. He seemed to take his game to a different level. There were some jaw-dropping moments. I think about the finish against Manchester City. At Liverpool, the result didn't necessarily go your way, but some of the stuff and the moves and the assists were fantastic. How would you assess him so far? And also, if you could give us a little injury update as well. We've noticed photos of him on the training ground, which is good to see.
Yeah, well, firstly, on that point, he's trained with us for the last couple of days, so that's a midweek for us here Wednesday, and we play on Monday. So I suppose I have to be a little bit careful going into Brighton. I'll see how he is right up until that game, because he had quite a serious hamstring injury, and his recovery's been pretty quick, and a lot of testament to him for that, because he's worked really hard in the small off-season to get fit. So that's a great plus for us. I think last year I had every feeling that Christian was going to come here and be a huge player for the club. I knew his talent. I saw it very early in his time here, and it became very much a talking point in and around the club when I didn't start Christian that regularly in the early parts of the season. And I genuinely felt it was time for him to adapt to the league, having come off the back of having 1 week off in between seasons. So I tried to protect him, and then when he got into the team, he didn't need protecting. He was straight in and playing well, and that got broken by a pretty serious injury. And he's a player that gets so frustrated because all he wants to do is play and play well and produce for this club and play like he did in Restart. So when I saw that progression in Restart to the player that showed those qualities, showed a new belief in being the player that was going to make a difference for us, and his speed and balance and finishing, and it was great to see. So it was a shame that he got injured in the cup final. I believe if he'd have stayed fit, maybe he felt the injury as he ran through to goal. I think he probably would have scored, and the final might have looked different. And that's how pivotal Christian was becoming to us at the end of the season. So now I'm very excited that this season he's going to improve even more. He's come back looking really hungry. He will only improve, I feel, with the players who are brought in and around him in those forward areas that will be on hopefully a wavelength with him. We'll be able to take attention away from him with maybe their movements that might give Christian even more space. And the more these players work together now, I'm excited about the front players we've got, and Christian's right in the middle of that.
The number 10 shirt, Frank, is iconic in football. Is it a shirt that he wanted? Is it a shirt that you want him to have? How did that come about? Because it's clearly significant.
Yeah, I wanted him to have it because I felt like he deserved it, and he came and he wanted it. But he came last year, and William was at the club and was almost the man in waiting at the club to take the 10 shirt, and I think it was right that he took it with his experience. And when it became open, I think what Christian delivered in his first year more than warranted that he gets the 10 shirt for what it means. And I know it means a lot. There will be a few that will be in that line to try and have that shirt. But I was very pleased. I was keen for him to have it. I was very pleased to actually make the call. I called him because he was at home at the time to tell him about it. And I could sense he was happy, and I sense a feeling in him now that it's maybe another little push up for him, hopefully, where he can feel confident that he's here as number 10, the responsibilities that come with that. And I've got no worries with Christian. As I say, he's hungry. The only thing we have to continue to do is manage him, because he's so fast and the way he plays. We have to manage to try and come away from those big injuries he had last year. That's something where it's a work in progress between medical and my conversations with Christian, because we all know what a fit Christian Pulisic can do.
Just finally, Frank, and we appreciate your time today. You've always talked, every time that we've spoken since you've become manager at Chelsea, about your expectations. You know, the top four is great, but you want to be challenging at the top. Do you feel like you've taken a significant stride in this off-season in terms of personnel, in terms of your experience now as manager of Chelsea, to give Liverpool and City, if they are the front two runners, a real run for their money this season?
Well, I hope so, and that's my big desire, because, as you say, I keep saying it. At Chelsea, in previous years we've been used to winning Premier Leagues. It's such a big gap, as it showed last year, that we should never run before we can walk. We know that 30 points is there for a reason, and bringing players in, as we have done in a small collective, that we've brought in, we've had no pre-season to work. So in the beginning, my first thought is, how can we get them settled in, get the team working, get everyone in an understanding? And that's the challenge that we have, which is why it's taken Liverpool, 4 years or so, with an incredible manager, to get them to the point of winning the Premier League last year. And Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, a different journey, but similar in terms that they improve over time with work and recruitment. So we have to understand where we are. We feel like we're slightly at the start of that process with the players we've brought in. We want to close the gap, of course. We want to go in an upward direction and start closing it. And I think it's really important we take that step by step, game by game in the beginning, to try and see if we can get there.
Frank, thanks very much indeed for your time once again, and go well. And we look forward to seeing your side this season.
Say hi to everyone over there for me.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern on NBCSN. And for more than 1,400 hours of exclusive Premier League content, make sure to visit NBCsports.com/gold.